But thank you so much for joining from Newark to Nigeria today for what we have as a special, amazing broadcast. And thank you so much, Chris Jones, for joining us. Chris Jones has many hats. Chris Jones has 2 master's degrees from Union Theological Seminary and as well a historically Black college and university.
Morehouse School of Religion at the Interdenominational Theological Center, ITC.
That's right. So I wanted to give a special, amazing shout out for Brilliance walking into the room today and does dynamic diversity and inclusion trainings, really coming from this place of honoring the powerful whole people that we are and creating healthier ways of relating. And as you know, Kuumba Health's mission is about that. So a different spin, but bringing such a unique blend into this world that's so needed, timely more than ever. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining our Love Medicine TV broadcast second half.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and get started in Love Medicine TV tradition. Can you just share a little bit about how do we know each other? If you can share back to an earlier memory of how we connect, because you and I went to the same seminary together, but one early memory of how we connected.
Oh, wow. So I think we stayed in the same dormitory, cemetery. Well, I said cemetery, but seminary, and we lived on the same floor.
Yeah.
And so I remember walking by this door. It's like all this Black girl magic stuff on the door. I'm like, who is this? I want to know who's behind this door. And lo and behold, Sacred Skywalker. So the earliest memory I have of our encounter is me encountering your door first. The door led to an introduction, which then led to friendship. And then sharing meals. So I remember, and you're going to laugh at me.
Oh my gosh.
You're going to laugh.
Okay.
Where he was in my room and we was eating and was sitting on the bed, and you made a spill. And you got on me. He was like, "Brother, I'm sorry." I said, "You just spilled on my comforter." He said, "Brother, I'm sorry." He said, "You hold grudges." I said, "No, I don't." But it was fun. We used to do that all the time. We just cook and share food. Oh yeah, I used to cook all the time. So
yeah.
That all the time. But good times, yeah. Those are early memories. That seventh, was it 4th floor, 7th floor, whatever floor?
The second floor. I think it might have been the second. 4th, yes, one of those.
One of those floors, but yeah, that whole floor, and you always create a community. You was always bringing people together on that floor to have dinners and sit down and talk, that sort of thing. So those are my earliest memories of us connecting and creating familyhood and friendship. So yes.
Yeah. Oh, that brought back some good memories. Absolutely. And I remember the door with the mirror on it that everyone would pass by and see and take a look at themselves, like the self-love mirror. I do remember that. And I remember, I think one of my earliest memories of you was your generous spirit. I remember coming over and sitting on your huge couch, because everyone out there needs to know how lavish this suite was at seminary. You come in and you are in the suite of lavish. It was so delicious. Had food set up, and just always felt like that brother that you can say, "Hey, listen, I'm in need," because we all go through. And and listen, I'll throw down, but he's got the food in the fridge. Trust, ready. Open the door, and just felt immediately like second family, and some amazing conversations. So this, feels to me, and I'm hoping that this is translating into that the foundation of this in and of itself was Love Medicine, because our conversations in and of itself were so inspiring and felt like they lent to Black intimacy. It felt like it really lent to the conversation that we're going to have today.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And now tell me, what tea have you brought to our conversation, Mr. Jones?
So actually, I have a combination. A core ingredient or tea that I like to use is a ginger turmeric powder, ginger turmeric robust tea, and I mixed it with a blood orange tea. And so I have that steeping in my little handy dandy kettle here. And and it's spicy because it has a little cayenne, it has a little cinnamon in it, so it warms
Mm.
and I have my alfalfa tea. It's from my favorite little tea shop in Harlem called Serengeti Teas. And I mean, if you've not been to that place, it's magical. It will like convert you to a tea head instantly. And it happens overnight. I mean, first time I went there to get a cup of tea, and I'm like, oh, this is cute. You know, I've got tea stuff here. And it's like African stuff around. And they got all these beautiful mason jars in the background with different teas. And I was like, oh, okay, this is nice. Went there for a couple of months. Next thing I know, 6 to 12 months later, my countertops look just like their countertops. I got mason jars.
You took on the brand.
Spices. Right. It's just like, I'm like, how did this happen? Like, you know, I just started buying teas and honey and all these little filters and you know, steeping stuff and filtering stuff. And it's just amazing. So, yeah. So this is my little combination this morning. It's really good.
Oh, my goodness. There's a Harlem tea cupboard right now awaiting that is like advertising them right there.
Yes, it is everything. And I mean, if you have not gone there, it's such a great place. I mean, it's thriving. People in the neighborhood love that shop. It's just awesome. And the owner's great. People behind the counter are great. John, who does tea and coffee, who is absolutely amazing. He's always there. It's like a family. It's just really, really great. And it's also like, if I'm not feeling well and I need to go in there, I'm like, oh God, John, I have, you know, my nasal drippage or blah, blah, blah. Can you make me something? I got you, Chris. He'll pull out some specialties and see you on your way. He was just like, I feel loved. Yes. So, yeah.
And how powerful is that ritual in and of itself, that every time you go down there and you're not feeling well, your body automatically registers, hey, listen, this is a place that is going to bring comfort. And then he's right behind the counter to do that, to like love on you. Like, what a gift.
It's really, really amazing. Like, I mean, and that's a relationship that emerged over time. And the first time it happened, I was just like, oh my God, like, this is great. Like, I mean, this is really like a healing space. And a lot of people come and just the intentionality behind even the whole setup and the conversation. And it's just really great. Just so good. It's a great space.
That sounds wonderful. Well, you've heard it here first. Okay, so, you know, hopefully folks out there who live in Harlem or are watching from anywhere around the world who have your own favorite tea spot know that that person behind the counter who is showing up for you and being that model can really be that medicine for you. And I'm so glad that Chris, who puts out so much in the world, has that person.
It's so great. And what's also great is me and one of the people John behind the counter, we often exchange beads. He'll come in with a different combination and he'll say, I'm like, oh, John, let me see your wrist. And he'll say, oh, yeah. He said, here, brother, you take this one. And I was like, here, brother, you take this. So we always exchanging stuff. This is really great. Very great.
That's very, very, very sweet.
So what are you drinking?
I'm actually drinking some chai tea that I got from my cupboard that, you know, I'm like, oh, this story of this person behind the cupboard exchanging beads and love beads. I was like, oh, goodness. But I am definitely a person of ritual, I have to say. And I'm drinking chai tea, which is my absolute favorite. And I know y'all out there are kind of like at this point, like, Sacred, are you going to mix it up? No, I'm not, because I love chai. And for those who have watched the first episode know that I also brought, so this is, you know, chai is my rhythm, and I'm drinking it in one of our love mugs. As you can see, our latest line, you know, inspired by Dr. Michelle Lewis from our last line, our last broadcast. And so, you know, it says, my love's radical, and it is chai. It has my condensed milk. Once again, y'all out there, I know condensed milk is not the best for you, but it breathes deliciousness into my spirit. When I tell you I put it into the cup, I mean, it really does. And actually, I found something. I found a little research that said, Quantum Doctor, this book said, if you do something again and again and your body associates with it, it becomes like medicine. So technically, my condensed milk that is not good for me has become my like, ooh, the day is good and joyful medicine. Okay, so it is what it is, y'all. Hello, but I love my condensed milk chai tea. I love my condensed milk chai tea. So that's what I'm drinking today. Yeah, and to be honest, it really reminds me of my mom. It reminds me of like waking up in the morning and like having her boil something that just feels really soothing. And so whenever I want to like call in that like maternal energy, I'll like put on myself.
Good.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, speaking of like moms, families, and people behind the counters, I'm curious, Chris, what community do you represent? Like, who would you say is your tribe? If you were to say, these are the folks either that I have their back, or these are the folks that I professionally serve, if they're one and the same. Like, who is your tribe? Who do you represent today?
You know what? I am tribe inclusion. I think tribe inclusion. I these days wear many hats and circulate through many communities, and it feels like it's the power of the shamanic chameleon of sorts. Like we have to go and move in different spaces, and so. And I'm a mediator, so I like to, wherever I'm called to go, it's the inclusive community. Because, before it might be like, oh, Black folks, LGBT folks, same gender loving folks, your radical left or, your fraternity people or your church people or, and after a while, all these communities reflect something about yourself. And so for me, it's about the calling in the moment. And so I'm for the people. I'm for the people. I'm for the life. That's what I say I'm with these days. I'm where the life is. That might sound all ethereal, but
no, but
it's real. Like I'm where the life is.
Yeah, it sounds expansive. That's what it sounds like. And so I'm curious, I'm gonna, because this is as I've, behind the scenes prepped you on, that this is about finding creative health solutions. So amidst this world, and then we'll dive in more deeply into our subject and discuss this more deeply, but amidst this world that is so right now focused on divide, right? Like, let's be real, like this world right now is focused on identity, and there is this looming feeling of imminent threat right now. You're coming along saying, let's bridge build. Let's create these inclusive spaces. What are some of the challenges to that? You're coming and now saying from this expansive place that it's important to bridge build amidst a world that is struggling with division and struggling with us versus them and struggling with edicts and challenges to that very notion. What are some of the challenges to that ideology, that perspective, that vision of that definition of community that you've interfaced? Give me one example of a challenge to that.
Well, the challenge to community is the self. And I think it's the self. The challenge to community is the self. And the self in relation to our individual egos and that whole process of being an individual within the group. So, and we find ourselves going back and forward between, group think and group identity, and then self think and self identity. And usually, that causes us to do all these different movements that take place in community where we start to create subsets, and then we start to, have different sorts of exchanges that cause us to separate. And so the biggest thing is to find the self. It's the self conflicts within the larger perspective. And just like anything, it can become a contagion. Like it's infectious in the sense that somebody's internal self process can rub off on somebody else, and they form a collective, and they say that what they are doing is better or more exciting or more life-giving than the rest of the collective. So it starts a divide, and then all these other principles. It creates a divide. Like this whole group over here may feel like what they're doing. This whole group here may feel as if what they're doing is more life-giving and therefore may pull away from the pack. But it's always, I think it always starts with the self process. And the self can be a blessing to community, and it can also be the conflict of community. But I think that nonetheless, community holds both. It holds the blessing, it holds the conflict, it holds all of that. And as we all are just doing this simultaneous movement called life, being in our life. Yeah. So, I think that's where it is. Even when we see in the larger world today, I think that it's a lot of different collective conflicts, like with these different groups. Like division is such a big thing these days, but it starts with the self. I think that it's reflecting of like how many of us are just like are really feeling splintered. It's like a certain type of splintering that's happening because it's reflective everywhere. And it's part of a natural movement of life, but it's challenging because as well as we're splintering, there's this deep cry for us to bring it back together because the splintering is the process of splintering and pulling apart and revealing what's there behind the splintering. It's uncomfortable. It shows us some stuff that maybe we didn't know was there before. And now that it's emerged, it's like, what do we do with it? That's what the call is. What do we do with this time? What do we do with what this time is showing me about myself and about my community, about my politics, about my faith, about my intellect, about my knowledge? And as that happens, I'm still pulling away. But it's a self process within this larger collective called community. It's an exciting time. It's a scary time. It's also a life-giving time. And so when I say my calling is the people, and this whole idea of like what it means to be inclusive, it's about embracing the whole and embracing the whole of the movement, which means figuring out ways to navigate the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, in order to move towards a cohesive or a more robust experience of the self.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, no, that was well said. I think something that I pulled from the gift that you just shared was about almost this reflective process. What came up in my spirit was this affirmation card that says that my world is a mirror of what's happening within. And as I change or transform what's happening internally, my experience of my world will change. And so what you're speaking to is that inside-outside process that, when you have that inner conflict, how can it reflect in your community? And so I'm curious then for those, and just to, hassle a little bit, for those who say, this has been so many years, I'm tired of this. How would you say now more than ever amidst that, the role of Black intimacy then comes into play for those who do feel individually in their identity hurt while also wanting to be an ally to the immigrant, to Black Lives Matter, to corporate America, to burnout prevention? Like how do you show up amidst that? Holding on to your own individuality while still dealing with the changes of the world.
Right. I think that, at least for me, part of the call is to, in the times of Black Lives Matters versus All Lives Matters, the various movements which are all doing great work. I think that people have the opportunity as well to posture themselves with I matter as well. And I not just being the singular, capital I or lowercase I, but oftentimes in my creative writing, everywhere I want to say I put EYE.
Mm.
I matter. In the sense that what I see matters. Like what I see matters, my perspective matters in terms of how I see myself and how I see the world, because the I believe is where it starts. And so the challenge is loving myself in the face of what I see, both internally and externally. And I think that can yield a lot of fruit. If I can learn to sit in the love seat of the self, the I, and what I see, it can best guide me to the movements and to the different spaces, to the different causes, and do it within reason. If reason is what I'm, seeking for, or even to do it radically, or to do it in an overextending way that puts my body and myself on the line. Either way, it starts with the I. It starts with the EYE, I, and embracing that I. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
See, and even if you're visually impaired, I mean, let's be inclusive there. I mean, there still is a perspective seen in the eye.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's my experience in the world. It's my orientation in the world. It's how I take in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And loving that, and understanding, sitting with the mystery of that. Like that's a very life-giving place to start, indeed.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It almost speaks, or it speaks to me with the EYE to this intuitive, insightful place of the third eye. And for those who out there who have this belief in this like deep understanding of the self, Dr. Naeem Akbar speaks about this idea of having this deep understanding of the self to connect to the collective, and understanding like the ancient self. And so, some people out there who this is not their language are like, what's a Yeah. So, what I'm hearing you speak to for those who are into mystical and need that, it's like in the midst of this, I am older than this time period and I have been here before and I will be here again, right? For those who that's not their language and they need something practical and tangible, what is one piece of insight that will help an individual who is struggling with that, who's saying, yes, but I still need to put insight into my son who has to go out there into the world and feel rejected? Or yes, and I still need to figure out a way to not pass by a church and feel like I am not worthy. The EYE and the I, the small I don't feel worthy. Like what would you say, maybe to fine tune the question, is the role of faith in this? Is the role of spirituality in this process for those who've been beaten down by it and as well lifted up? Like what is the role of spirituality in that discovery of the I?
Got it. I FYI, and I love Dr. Naeem Akbar.
Mm-hmm.
Similar work in the beginning, early days of my clinical training.
Mm-hmm.
What comes to me is just opposing, Dr. Akbar's work. What comes to me is just opposing Dr. Naeem Akbar's work with, I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert Love.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Okay.
I think
Okay.
grounded. We all understand the necessity of eating. For many of us, this idea of praying or extending into that realm of reaching for the cosmos or the Godhead or whatever your faith may be, and this idea of this love piece that's between myself and others or whatnot. And so, what's practical is embracing the magic and wellness you create each day. Whom you do it for. I was just talking to my one of my assistants yesterday actually, and she's really into Deepak Chopra and his daily go lives and that sort of thing. And he's starting this new, putting a plug in for him, right? He's doing this new campaign called Wealthies, where you track where you're creating wellness for yourself and for someone else, and take a picture of the wealthy, like a selfie. And so for the mother who has the son in a contentious space, I mean, I think when you feel like you don't have anything else, the magic of being together and love, I think that's transformative. It's the place, creating a space where hope can emerge when it feels like there's no hope. And that can be an embrace of a mother. Maybe the mother's so deep in the struggle or the lived experience that weighs upon her that, you know, like many mothers, sometimes they come to the house and it's this, you know, I'm disrobing the way of the world. And I'm just like, oh, why is this house not clean? Then I tell you do this, da da da. And I think in the midst of that movement, there's always opportunity for the shift. And the shift could be love. And that's important because I think life always presents us a moment to shift, and shift by way of food, because food is very healing and cathartic, and used appropriately, it's transformative. Prayer, in whatever form that means for the individual, you know, and I think Black people in the West, particularly African descendant folks, one of the things I think we were given for the people who came before us is that language of prayer and connecting to that beyond ourselves. And I mean, I think that remembering that there's always something larger looming outside of ourselves, that when we don't understand, that oftentimes presents opportunity for shifting, transformation within myself and also within a space. And then love. I think love is the movement of that larger thing. And it starts in us and it resides outside of us. And so I think love always wins. Love wins.
Yes.
Access love.
Right. Even in the face of, right.
In the face of mystery, in the face of not understanding, I mean, have a politic of love. But let me say this, love is no food. Right. And love sometimes is strong and hard. And love has boundaries too.
Yes, there we go. Yeah.
And to put the boundary there is love. In intimate and Black intimacy, oftentimes I think we're given this message in terms of African descendant folks and maybe some other people in the community, whether it be Protestant or Christian or maybe your other religious backgrounds, Christian or Protestant or your other religious backgrounds. They're often given this message or this orientation of love does all, or, you know, just always being embracing. But there's love in all and an opportunity to love all. But even in the all encompasses all, and there's boundaries in all.
Right. Absolutely.
And even to have the boundary, that's love.
Right. Yes. Well said. Well said. It sounds like you're speaking to healthier ways of relating. You know, it sounds like you're really speaking to that. And I want to build upon what you just said about it being food. And I'm glad that you juxtaposed it in that way. And I'm hoping that people who are now watching, wherever you are, you can apply it to a community. If you are of African descent, if you are an ally, if you are of European, Asian descent, we all have come from these traditions of acknowledging ancient wisdom, acknowledging prayer, and specifically, you know, our focus today is of Black intimacy, and so we are delving in, but I want us to really look at how we can apply this across the board, because we all have mothers, fathers, gender fluid folks in our lives who are called to, even in ways that people fall short, are called to embody that love, right? And teach that. And also, there are ways that we're still learning how to better relate to one another. And what came up in my spirit when you said that was the mother of Sean Bell, Valerie Bell. I had the opportunity recently to meet her, and she wrote a book that came out, Sean, I think it's Sean 23, and it was talking about, you know, her experience of what it is like to be a mother of someone who lost a child to gun violence. And so what came to my spirit to build on what you just shared, which I think is so necessary, is at those dinner table conversations. How do you prepare your child for the world that we're living in? How do you connect with that partner for the world that we're living in to be the bomb? What are ways that you have seen, personally or professionally, in moments with a family member or even in a team, the importance of being that bomb to prepare for the world that may not always have what you're speaking about, which is this expansive love? How do we prepare people that we love for the world that may not always be so loving?
Right. That's a big question.
I know. That's what we do here. We ask deep questions and we dive in, y'all, but we're going to give you some practical steps so you can swim with us, okay? So swim on in. But this is the formative time that you're speaking about, and it's calling upon us to figure this out together.
Right. I feel like my natural proclivity is to we talk about like Sean Bell and mothers who've lost their children to gun violence in this very precarious age around Black lives and violence and police state violence. I often want to just embrace and hold, right?
Mm.
And I realized that the mother in mourning or the mother in waiting, because sometimes there's this period of waiting, waiting for the child or waiting for news about your child or, the uncertainty. You think you want to just hold them, right? But I realized that the urge to hold is really about me.
Pause on that for a second. Let's repeat that one more time because I need people to catch and delve into a little bit more about that, because that right there, I got shivers. So break that down some more. What does that look like? What does that mean?
That my urge to hold the mothers in mourning or in waiting, or the community in mourning, is to hold them. I said, but I realized the holding is about me. And who really probably needs to be held in the moment is me. And I need to hold and embrace myself, because at some moment in the face of what's happened or what's happening, I don't know how to move. And sometimes when I don't know how to move, all I know is I need to be held. I need to feel something that holds me, that embraces me in a turbulent time. And I would think that other people need it too, but I'm inclined enough to know that I have to let the community, I have to let the individual tell me what they need is in the particular moment. But also listen to myself that I need to be held. And so I think that the lesson in that for youth and for parents and for communities is to create space to have the conversation around what it means to hold the self and to name your needs. Because I can run into a burning house, but I got to check myself first before I go into the fire. Because if I go into a fire without myself collected, it could be doubly destructive. And I'll be best serving the burning house when I'm clear about my running to the fire. So I gotta hold myself. I gotta pay attention to the voice that's brewing within in the face of turmoil, in the face of conflict, and teaching a child that early on, to think, and let the thinking and the thoughts and the thinking guide you. That's important. I got a IBM used to have a mantra of just think, right? IBM, think. And so I have this little thing on my desk that says from IBM, it says think. And I have another post on the side that says give a damn, right? And so I think both are important. To think, remember to care. Think and remember to care, and hold them in conversation with each other. And caring is just being attuned and sharing and figuring out what is the need, but you have to hard. In particular, I said, and starting here, and it's so particularly hard, particularly when many of us may come from a communal view or world view that starts with the community, and somehow distance the self and say, I am the community. And I think there's a benefit. And I also think there's room for some sort of evolving the frame, even from communally oriented people, in the sense that I do group relations work also that deals with groups. I do a lot of stuff with groups and group thinking. And I was just reading something the other day that talked about how when I see the group, I see myself. And when I see myself, I see the group. But nevertheless, I got to see myself. You got to see the self. Teaching the child to see the self. Helping the mother to see herself. A conflict can overtake you. The mourning can overtake you. And when that wave washes over, what you're left with is always the self. You come back to the self. Yeah. So I don't know if that answered the question. I think we just went somewhere. But yes, embracing and paying attention to that voice, thinking through it and caring. Think, care, give a damn. But and pay attention to that first thing that makes you want to, I gotta hold myself. Yeah. That's where Black Anthony starts.
Yes. Well, and then right. Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Think, care, and then you also said ask. And so that extra piece for those out there who want to be allies and saying, oh, I want to hold, what Chris is calling upon us to do is to say, have I asked this person, this community, is this how they want to be held? Is this how they want to be supported? This is what Chris is calling us to do, to really look at groupthink and look at how am I showing up in groupthink. You know, I recently was speaking to a woman who was deaf at the Creating Change conference, and she said something so poignant that builds upon what Chris is saying, and in a way challenges what you said earlier, but adds to it. She said, you know, people come in and they often want to speak for me because I'm deaf. They assume that I need to be spoken to. She's a deaf LGBT activist. And she said, I am capable of speaking for myself. You learn American Sign Language and come back and communicate with me or ask me, do I want to be advocated for? But let me tell you how to move forward, to speak for me. Do that first. And so you're calling us to say, wait a minute, before I go, oh, I need to advocate for this community, have I first looked at where am I showing up in this? How am I projecting onto that group? And you're really using that clinical lens. And so how would you say you personally or professionally speak more to the ways that you have, as a practitioner, as a leader, as a facilitator, as a guide, as an executive, shown up either for your team or the groups that you've worked with? How have you been that love medicine for you first? What is a tool that you can give that you are love medicine for you first before showing up for the group. For those who are watching, wherever you are, who you are in high intense situations that are moving, and you're like, I may not have that moment. I've got to run into the ER. I've got to run in to meet with a client. How can you be that love medicine for you first?
Well, I think everybody has an opportunity to find their own ritual or their own thing that they do to center themselves in the intensity of life, right? Intensity of life, intensity of business, intensity of mothering or fathering or brothering and sistering or loving, partnering, all of those ings. And so for myself, I love what I do. I realize that I'm fortunate in the sense that all of my work is connected to this deep call and passion just to be in the world in a particular way. And so I like to laugh. I like to laugh. And I like to have reason to smile, and I like guttural laughs. And so I could be in the middle of a meeting with my team, which it's so funny because I'm embarking upon doing corporate work, but much of me is not corporate. It's just like, I'm Christopher, like, this is who I am. And yeah, so, but I find space even in our meetings sometimes to just pause and do some sort of sharing or a side that just causes us kind of like pause in the middle of intensity and I'll laugh or do something like breaking the flow. And that tends to be the thing. Like, try to find ways to smile and just be in my body. And when I mean be in my body, just be attuned to what I'm feeling. Because sometimes it's hard for a lot of people to be in their body. And even to understand what that means. What do you mean be in my body? I'm always in my body, right? But no, sometimes it's just like the cough that you don't pay attention to, and you let it fester for months or weeks, or the ache in your toe, or that toenail was started off a little cloudy and now it's yellow. The body is paying attention to the small things, and to the small things, and seeing what they have to tell you in the moment, because starting a world, the body in the internal life is just as deep and vast as everything you see outside yourself. So I'll have to come back in, go in. And for some people, it's scary to go in. But if you face the fear and go in, I think it'd be really life-giving. And that's what I do these days. I'm into psychoanalytic practices and being allowing that work to speak, like just to be in my body, be into the mystery within myself, and let it pour forth creativity, pour forth manner. That's how I do my work. That's how I do my business. And it's when you tap into your creative flow, you tap into your genius. The ancient Greeks and Elizabeth Gilbert, she did a TED talk on this some time ago. She talked about how in not Roman times, but probably some antiquitous time, that genius was thought to be this thing that existed outside you that will run and take over you. Right, it jumped on you for the moment, and when it was on you, you wanted to write down and get everything that it was giving you for that time, because genius may leave. And I think that when you do tap into that inner source and it speaks, it's like that genius outside that we think of outside ourselves, or the Greeks thought outside themselves. Same thing takes place inside. It's just when it speaks, you listen, write it down. Susan Boyd Parks just had a play about the last Negro alive ever in the world.
Yes, the 42nd. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one thing she said over and over was, she says, write it down. put it up under a rock
Yeah.
before they erase it, before it dissipates, before it disappears. Like, pay attention to that, because I could be in a meeting, and particularly from the CEO seat, I could be in a meeting and my team is talking and all this stuff just starts coming to me. It just comes and it doesn't stop. It does not stop.
Mm.
And it's a gift. It's a gift. But you got to tap into the flow. So I work to stay connected, tap into the flow.
Absolutely. I love that. So Chris is teaching us this morning, reminding us to tune in to that voice, to tap into that flow. And if for those who are out there that have a little notebook, this is my wee moon, the calendar, that this is my way. But if you have a little notebook that you can slip into your docket pocket, or if you can slip it on the go and you can catch those notes, let's write down our stories. Let's catch those pieces that Chris is reminding us to tune in. Even if it's before you run into a board meeting, you grab that notepad of this bit of insight, because that bit of insight might open up to a deeper part of what Chris was reminding us of that core genius. And so that's brilliant. It's important.
And let me say this too. It doesn't always have to be intelligible words.
Mm.
Sometimes the flow speaks to you in images. And you need to write down the stick figure and just take some time to see what the stick figure is saying to you in a moment, or what you communicate. Are you scribble or circles? I mean, it's everything speaks. So I don't think it has to be the most poetic proses and words, and you got to get on the mic like Jill Scott and just start, doing your black girl magic. No, it can be images. It could be wind. It could be anything, but it's speaking. And just learn to speak that language.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can even be a dance. One of my favorites is just to some Andre Day, who's my girl out there. Andre Day, I hope to, interview sometime soon, have you come, because you can throw on some Rise Up and literally just move. No, you're absolutely right, because sometimes the universe will speak through you and tap into those parts of yourselves that might have that thing that you've been ignoring. That might need to pour through. So absolutely, your apps, I hands down can relate to that.
Yeah, movement. That's true. Movement. I mean, it could be any of those things. Sometimes I could put it on. It's so interesting. I could go gospel to country, and even when I may feel static and stuck, just making myself move. I mean, that's true. Movement shifts you. I mean, by way of the dance, by way of the music. It's so funny. A song I've been listening to lately, or a canon of music I've been listening to lately that gets me going, is from the Wiz.
Mm.
And the Diana Ross version of the Wiz, right?
And I know y'all know what the Wiz is out there, so come on, y'all. Mm-hmm.
And so I listened to her sing "Be a Lion." And let me tell you something. That song these days, it's so funny because I even like to watch it. I mean, we can watch it right now. But I mean, but yeah, that whole thing about be a lion and facing your fear, and if courage you must call, then keep trying. Like, keep calling on courage and be a lion, and on your own way be a lion. I mean, I'd be like, yes! Yes! And then the lion stands up and say, I'm standing strong and tall, and you're the bravest of them all. I mean, it's such an encouraging moment. And I don't know where it came from, but I was like, me and my friends, we have it in heavy rotation. And I've been like, I start a meeting with that one day. I said, I just need a centering moment. I want to play Be a Lion. And I need to play the YouTube version so you can see Diana Ross. She's singing, they sad, and the lion is laying in her lap, and then she gets the lion by his hands, and she makes the lion stand up, and she's singing to him, like she lifts him up. Not only does it lift you up, but it sings to you, and it sets you on your way. I mean, and that's what it is. Whatever that flow is, listen to it, go into it, and let it lift you, let it take you. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that, folks, you've heard it here today. Tune in, tap in, care, and take a moment to be present with what's going on for you before you leap into that fire, and do so boldly. We are calling in this Black intimate time today to do so in a way that we are calling upon that lion part of ourselves, as Chris is saying. And so, if you are out there, if your team is out there struggling with that lion part, tapping into that core genius, let's now share a little bit about how, Chris, we can invite you, wherever you are on the East Coast, or if you want to fly Chris out to another place and his team out to do this really imperative and timely creative health solution work. How can we, Chris, tap into that work that you do, that unique, inspiring potential?
Well, good question. Before I go there, I do want to, in the frame of the theme, Black intimacy, because I don't know if throw that home enough, but it takes courage to do Black intimacy, and even courage to love yourself and to love somebody else, and to be committed to the act of loving. That takes it's a courageous act, and it's no small feat, but it's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a time to commit to that, to loving, and loving creatively, and not giving up when love gets tough.
And can I do a call for folks who are watching this before you continue, that if you can relate to that, if you can type underneath the screen your name, do a shout out, where you coming from, because you're catching at the tail end of this and you joined, that you are, if you are chiming in and cheering in, that you are recommitting to Black intimacy in whatever skin you were in today. Type your name, go ahead and put a shout out to where you're calling in from, where you're videoing in from, where you're tuning in from underneath this broadcast, okay? So we want to make sure that you are as well committed to this call of roaring.
Yeah. In terms of the work that I do, you can go to my website, which is www.lg2jconsultinggroup.com. I have a little mug here with my company on it. This was a holiday mug. And so I should have had a flat so you can see it differently.
Oh, you can send it over.
I can send it over. And we're working on these inclusion workshops right now. And so we're getting in the process of doing some beta testing of these workshops, of these virtual workshops around inclusion. And so that's where a lot of our focus is. It's a very great, life-giving, but tedious work, important work in this time. And we've been developing this particular model for the past year, and fortunate enough to have the space to do the development. And we have this beautiful curriculum that I think is going to just be awesome once it gets legs and gets to the people, and the people can really sit in themselves and sit in groups and wrestle with some wonderful issues, but also broaden their perspective about what it means to just engage the world and engage various people in around them. Plus, that's what radical inclusion means, and to be inclusively radical is learn to engage that which is around you. If you're at a table, how do I engage the minds at the table? Not being count diversity and color and gender and that sort of thing, but really engage what's at the table to do whatever the task is that's before us. So I do coaching. I also do mediation work with teams. Our endeavor is to help communities in conflict, whether it be on the corporate side or community side. And a lot of the work is like I said, is emerging. But our top tier focus right now are these radical inclusion workshops. And yeah, look me up. And I need testers. I need people who can test it and give us user feedback. And I mean, that's a big part of helping us to make sure that we're right on par with what's the need in this current time. So yes, www.lg2j. Actually, there's an LG2J parent company page, and then there's the consulting group. And so the consulting group is where the work happens. Where the work happens. Yeah. And we're doing the work creatively. So you're going to see some characters and you're going to be like, what is all this right here? But, that's part of the work to come. We have characters that help us communicate, to do our work, to make the conversation a bit accessible, fun. We want to innovate the work and gamify the work as well. So people don't feel like it always has to be that type of conversation where everyone at the table seems like they're sucking limbs and we got to be like, and we want to fight and beat up everybody. But there's room for laughter because that's part of inclusion work. There's room for laughter. There's room for saying, I got it wrong. Don't beat me up, I got it wrong, but I got it wrong. And help me to figure out ways to self-correct and vice versa. Because oftentimes we can be not as gracious in the process of trying to build relationship and do work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. And please, if you can go and enter into the chat box, the website, so that for folks who, want to catch it can, and then it'll also be clearly highlighted in both the intro and also up at the site that you can watch this as many times as you need to, because we need to do that love medicine. You can go to this site and watch this episode as well and catch the rendition of that. And so that website will be there as well for you to follow up on. All right. So what I'm hearing you say is that you are doing this dynamic work and you have called us today to remember to honor Black intimacy, and you've called us today to really continue to shine and tap into that core genius in ourselves and in community. And so, this time together has been so imperative, so central, and I really want to thank you for joining. I want to take of course, my pleasure, and please do check that out. For those locally, nationally, check that website out and make sure that you tap into what is so central right now to being able to be bridge builders in this world, in this work, and to take care of ourselves and one another, stronger together, as we've been saying in our hashtag. And so go ahead and share, shout out at hashtag Love Medicine TV on Twitter, throughout, so that you can continue to spread the good word of this message. And for a quick, sharing of Kuumba Health's plug for local follow-up, remember this month we're focusing on supporting the dynamic work of what Chris and other power partners are doing on Black intimacy. So if you are local and you want to come out, do for our Black intimacy Body Fabulous half-day retreat on February 25th. We have a couple of spots remaining. It's going to be happening at Union Square East. So come out. There's going to be authentic movement through yoga and through goddess arts, a rendition that I've created, a mix of contact improv, which is theater, but also connecting and tuning into the body. Because as we said earlier, it's so important to pay attention so that we can address stress at the root, so we can prevent some things in the long run. We can really tune into our body and love the skin we're in. So we show up powerful, fierce, CEO, doctor, philanthropist that we are, feeling embodied, feeling cared for, feeling loved on. And if you are joining us outside of New York, or if you don't plan on flying in for this Body Fabulous on February 25th from 2 to 6, or for our Women Finance on March 25th, then please also go ahead and join us on our next Love Medicine TV broadcast that will be happening the last Monday in March, where we will be focusing in on women in faith, on looking at the ways that women in faith can be the love medicine the world needs, and addressing some of the issues that we're seeing that divide us to find that solution today. So go ahead and join us. We look forward to seeing you then. Chris Jones, please, let's all give him a dynamic round of applause in Kuumba Health tradition, and continue to be that dynamic shining star. Thank you so much for being a friend and colleague in the world.
Thank you. Love you so much. And the work this is absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a gift. We'll see you next time. Go ahead and shop khp.org/shop for the love mug, and go ahead and shop as well for their beautiful line of swag and merch on their website. And we'll see you next month. Love Medicine TV. Continue to inspire love medicine in each interaction, one sip at a time. Love y'all.
Bye.
What an inspiring message today about Black intimacy, acknowledging that each day, each moment, tuning in, continuing to rise is so essential to both Black intimacy and all intimacy, one sip, one moment at a time. And I know, y'all, sometimes there can be challenges that arise from the boardroom to the bedroom. And so if you too are stuck in that area or recognizing that a little extra help can go a long way, I am available to hold space, hold sanctuary for you through our telehealth line. So if you are there seeing this, watching this broadcast and need some additional support, reach out, touch base, private message, or schedule an initial consultation just to make sure that you have that bridge that will help you continue to rise. I'm available at khhp.org/couples-coaching for your support today, individuals and couples. And as well, you could schedule time at meetme.so/support-session. I'm looking forward to being that safe space sanctuary for you today, locally and internationally. Thank you so much for joining Black Intimacy and joining me and my colleague and good friend Chris Jones and Nikita Thigpen for this dynamic broadcast. We look forward to seeing you next month, March 20th at 8 p.m. a Monday for Women in Faith, continuing to be the love medicine the world needs. All right, y'all. See you next time. And remember to get your love mug today so that you can, one sip at a time, inspire loving conversations and be the love medicine that the world needs. All right, y'all. Continue to rise. I look forward to seeing you moments in time and definitely joining either in person for a supportive session or as well for our March 20th broadcast. All right, like Chris said, let's continue to roar. And like Nikita said, let's continue just to show up in those healthier ways of communicating. And like I say, each time, remembering to show up and be present for one another as we all deserve. All right. See you next month. Rah. Be the love medicine the world needs. Peace. And that is our show for this Love Medicine broadcast on Black intimacy. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for supporting and keeping Love Medicine free. Like we said, shop at khhp.org/shop to support this broadcast and also continue to inspire into each day, one sip at a time, healthier ways of relating and inspiring marginalized people to live dynamic lives. If you yourself are struggling with Black intimacy or any form of intimacy in your life, remember that I am available for telehealth support coaching where we can meet for a one-on-one session or couple session today. Go to www.khhp.org/couples-coaching and you can reach out for an initial complimentary consultation and as well set up sessions today. Remember, you are not alone on this road. Let's continue to rise stronger together. Each one reach one. I look forward to being there to be of support and help. Thanks so much for joining. See you next month on March 20th at 8 p.m., which is a Monday, for our Women in Faith Love Medicine broadcast, recognizing influencers throughout the world who inspire love medicine one sip at a time. Cheers, y'all. Thanks for joining. See you next month.